And to our discussion segment, credit rating agencies help in determining the chances of countries accessing financial resources. However, there have been challenges when it comes to credit ratings, which can significantly impact their access to international finance and investment. On Business Express today, we will examine the influence of credit rating agencies in how African countries access private funding and their fiscal feasibility. Our guest is an economist, Dr. Samson Simon. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Nigerians.
Now, beautiful, you've had the minister there, and when you do a comparative analysis, you see that we have a long way to go compared to our peers out there. We are talking about a huge budget. How important is this credit rating? What are the benefits?
Well, credit ratings are very important for an economy, and while the importance cannot be overemphasized, acquiring that might be a bit challenging, particularly the costs around the acquisition, and then some countries also do not really appreciate the importance of it. But the importance cannot be questioned. And another thing is that when you acquire it, it requires a lot of discipline if you don't want to lose it. So it's very important for Nigeria to have favorable credit rating, because if we do that, it will be easier for us to access capital across the world, to access whether foreign capital or even domestic capital, and to deepen our capital market. We're talking about funding. Nigeria is struggling to fund its budget compared to our peers around the world, whether it's Indonesia or Brazil, we're doing next to nothing. So there's a need for us to attract funding. The minister made mention of at least 100 billion towards the Agenda 2050. 100 billion is not child's play for an economy like ours, and it's not completely impossible. It may be daunting to achieve that, but it's not entirely impossible. So where there's a will, there's a way. And for us to have that will, then we need to ensure that our credit rating remains favorable. Before President Tinubu came on board, we had a negative outlook. It improved to stable in August last year, and it has subsequently even improved to a positive outlook. So there's an improvement, but we're still a long way off. The ideal is a AAA rating. We are far off from that. I think a lot of work needs to be done for us to achieve that, so that we can access capital across the world, and not only access capital, but access this capital at a favorable interest, so that we can easily pay back, and then we can continue to borrow to expand our economy to achieve the $1 trillion economy that we want to achieve.
Now Dr. Simon, why are some African countries reluctant to pursue obtaining credit ratings?
Well, African economies tend not to do really well with credit ratings. We tend to be considered junk. We are not really investment grade. And if that is the situation, we should even be more determined to prove that we are not actually junk status. We are actually investment grade. But the costs of acquiring this credit rating is not child's play, and some economies are really debt poor, and they may struggle to pay for this.
There are some characteristics that most of these investors look at, and one of it is the issue of corruption, issue of transparency, issue of political stability. There's also a lot of issues. And when you look at the profile, they fit a lot of African countries. Could that be the reason why they are hesitating to put their money?
Those are very important. The criteria they use to rank you, whether you are at the A level or at the B level, at the C, or even at the default level. So many factors come into play, including your socio-political the socio-political aspects of your economy, which considers political stability, which looks at corruption and other things within the economy, and whether the economy itself, how is the performance of the macroeconomy. And another thing is your debt. How much debt have you acquired over time, whether domestic or foreign? How is the debt servicing going? All these factors have to be considered. And we tend to struggle when we consider any of these criteria that will be taken into consideration to give a particular nation the credit rating that is appropriate for it.
Okay, with the ongoing reforms that we've seen the federal government pursuing, would you say that to an extent we are on the right path to addressing some of these issues so that we will be able to get much better credit ratings?
Well, according to the credit rating agencies, whether it's Fitch or Moody's or Standard & Poor's, they have been commending the current government for the reforms they have embarked upon, and that's why they have been improved. Our credit rating has been improving. It had a negative outlook. It improved to stable, and it's positive now. And if we continue on that trajectory, I believe the ratings will even get more favorable over time.
Okay, what about generating our own regional ratings? Can this be done, and will it be accepted?
Well, we have rating bodies, even in Nigeria, and we have them across the continent. But they have not reached that credibility, that acceptance all over the world. People hardly even go beyond those three that I mentioned. And then the fourth one, BDSR, those are basically the four that most economies and government recognize across the world. So it's not like we lack credit rating bodies or agencies in Nigeria or across the continent. It's just that they have not reached that level of credibility that if they make statements, people will value and they will take that into consideration.
Okay, but come to think of it, do you believe that good credit rating and resultant borrowing can bring Nigeria and other countries out of poverty?
Well, what good credit rating will do to an economy, it will help it to access credit easily. And not only will it have surfeit of capital or credit to borrow, but it will also have low rate of interest for these debts that it may want to acquire, which will be very easy for it to pay. So if you have easy access to capital, you have a lot of money that you can invest into infrastructure or building social safety nets. And those things will go a long way in helping an economy to expand over a period of time.
But this says a lot, you know, because when you look at it, the government is trying to push a reform and, you know, we are oil-producing countries, but better, even at that, we are not able to actually finance our own budget. I mean, when you look at the much resources it requires compared to other countries. But what then is the way to borrowing and economic development for Nigeria?
Well, we have been embarking on deficit spending, clearly indicating that what we generate is way below what we spend on a yearly basis, and that's why our national debt has ballooned. And one of the major reasons is because our revenue to GDP ratio is one of the lowest in the world. The current government is determined to increase it, and that was why they set up the fiscal and the tax committee under Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. They're working assiduously towards achieving results. While we have a lot of taxes, the actual revenue generated might not be much compared to other countries that have few taxes. And I think they're looking into that. And at the end of the day, we believe they'll come up with recommendations that will help us to increase our tax revenue to GDP ratio.
Dr. Simon, it's a pleasure having you on the program, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you for having me.
Beautiful.